Welcome to the Jenna Ellis Show, sponsored by Legacy Precious Metals. There has never been a better time to invest in precious metals. Visit legacypminvestments.com. That's legacypminvestments.com.
Well, good evening. Welcome to Jenna Ellis Tonight. I'm Ryan Helfenbein, filling in for Jenna Ellis. Hopefully, all of you celebrated Mother's Day on Sunday. This is a time to express both gratitude to God and to your mother for bringing you into the world. Anyone who has breath, a brain, and can hear the sound of my voice, you have a mother, and not just a birthing person. A viral post on social media last week revealed a trans man who was taking a newborn infant and trying to bond with it. The only problem? He wasn't the mother. He had no female anatomy. The baby was crying and could not clasp, bond, or feed. Roll the clip.
Oh, no, I'll put it back on her.
I know, but her mother has no problem.
Oh, he went back. Oh, we're right. Here we go.
Oh, there she goes. Oh, yeah. So cool. She's mad.
She's just picking up, dressing all at the same time, really close to
This is the insanity of the cultural moment we're living in. Joining me now is senior reporter at the Daily Signal, Margaret Olohan. She's also the author of DETRANS, True Stories of Escaping the Gender Ideology Cult. Margaret, thank you so much for joining us. What do you make of this?
That clip is so hard for me to watch because, first of all, you know, those of us who've been around babies a lot know that that is such a beautiful and amazing moment, those first moments when the baby is born, largely because of the connection the baby has with the mother. You know, the mom's able to calm the baby down and the baby knows what her heartbeat sounds like already from having been in the womb for so long. And then to see this man who's pretending to be a woman, who's wearing makeup and making fetishizing womanhood, taking this baby and putting it on his bare chest is just frankly disgusting and very scary to me. And I think it's epitomizing a lot of what is going on in our culture right now, of people grasping at identity and wanting things that they don't fully understand, and adults abusing the boundaries of womanhood and femininity to try and be something that they're not. So I hate watching that video. It really it hurts my heart, frankly. And that poor baby deserves to be with its mother.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's sick and disgusting. I remember as a kid, you would sometimes see movies where people would dress in drag. You know, they would try to, LARP, role play to Dolly Parton or something, right? And now this has gone well beyond the pale of anything we would have expected. This is now involving real children, real babies. This is a form of child abuse. Your book, True Stories of Escaping the Gender Ideology Cult, it could not be more fitting, the title, because this looks like a cult, does it not?
It has many cult-like symptoms and behaviors. If you look at how these adults who are bringing people into the gender ideology world, in many cases, they're grooming these young people to become transgender. And when I say grooming, that's not my word. That's the word that the detransitioners who talk to me for my book often use when they say that they were found by adults online, predators online, who encourage them to experiment with their gender, with their sexuality. These adults encourage them to send them inappropriate photographs of themselves, and much more to that effect. And not only that, but the way in which these transgender or trans identifying adults often talk about gender ideology, they'll tell young people that if your parents don't accept you or don't affirm you, then they hate you and they want you dead. And they want to draw these young people away from their families and away from their parents and into the fold, where they can more easily tell them who and what to be and how to feel. And these young people are ostracized from their families and then more pushed down this path. So I think that's a very cult-like tendency. And also, when the young people, if they do desist and articulate, this was wrong for me, I'm very hurt by this transition, both emotionally and physically, they're told that they're a liar, that they're a betrayer, they're kicked out of this transgender community and told that they never belonged in the first place. So there's so many cult-like attributes to the gender ideology circus right now, and these detransitioners and sharing the stories of what they experienced have really been shining a light on that and allowing people to understand for the first time what's actually going on.
You know, we really do need to have a light shined on this particular area. When you're talking about, transitioning, when you're talking about sort of the transgender movement, a lot of times it's involving people who are making decisions about their own body, right? This is something that has been basically foisted upon us and told to us for many years. But we're actually now talking about children, and in the cases of surrogacy adoption, children who have no choice. They have no choice. They don't. This child does not have a shot at actually having a real mother in his or her life, simply because of a decision that was made, bought and sold as a commodity. We just have about a minute to go, Mary Margaret. But what has surrogacy done to this whole movement?
Well, surrogacy is a prickly and thorny question that's become quite controversial, but studies show at the end of the day that children thrive when they have a mother and when they have a father. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we should be focusing on here. Every child deserves to have a mother and a father. No child deserves to be bought and sold as if they're some kind of commodity that someone deserves. No one deserves a child. A child is unique, and that is a person with a body and a soul that is going to be around for quite some time, and no one should be selling or buying children in the first place. But at the same time, when it comes into the gender ideology context, we need to be very aware that there are bad actors on this scene. Very recently, we found out there was a man that was talking about renting or buying a child for nefarious, perverted purposes, and that is not an isolated incident. So surrogacy absolutely needs to be very closely looked into. We need regulations on surrogacy and careful and prudential people.
Yeah, we'll continue that on the next segment. Thank you so much. Stay with us.
Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com, and use promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis Tonight. I'm joined by Margaret Olohan, senior reporter at the Daily Signal. And Margaret, before we went into the break, you were talking a little bit about how the impact of surrogacy was impacting the transgender movement and the gender ideology cult. And I just wanted you to finish that thought.
Yeah, I think we just need to be aware that there are absolutely bad actors out there who are willing to take advantage of surrogacy and to use children for perverted and nefarious purposes. That is not necessarily the case in every situation, but we should be aware of that, and we do need firm regulations in place and safeguards and people paying attention to who is adopting these babies and for what reasons. And like I was saying, we should not be selling or buying babies ever. It's an abhorrent thing to do.
Yeah, it's a modern form of chattel slavery, essentially treating children like commodities, like actual property on a slave block that you can just buy and sell. And maybe they're at the embryonic stage. Maybe they're not quite considered or deemed in the eyes of some as to be a full person, possessing all the same rights, but they are human beings. And I love what you said before we went into the break. Every adult does not deserve a child. Every adult does not deserve a child, but a child deserves a mother and a father. And that is something that they're endowed by their creator with those rights. But they deserve parents. The U.S. Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals became the first appellate court to say that states must pay for transgender health care, including sex reassignment surgeries. This includes 2 cases from West Virginia and North Carolina. The justices on the court, majority Democratic appointed, opted for the personal pursuit of happiness versus actual medical science or scientific evidence. But Margaret, this is the way it's going ever since Bostock. What do you make of all of this?
Well, this is a very precarious position to put doctors and medical professionals in, because this could very well cause people to be forced to violate their conscience or quit their jobs. It's a very prickly issue in general, but there are still doctors and nurses and therapists out there who do not want to be forced to perform these types of surgeries, or be considered discriminatory, and now they're going to be put in a very dangerous position. All across the country, we've already had lawmakers introducing laws trying to protect kids from trans surgeries, hormones, and puberty blockers, otherwise known as gender affirming care by the left. We've been seeing a lot of lawmakers on the right introducing legislation like this and actually getting it passed. And we've seen legislation trying to protect doctors from having to be put in a compromising position like this. This could be a big deal for doctors who are trying to practice ethically, and also signals to many people that their religious beliefs or their moral convictions on these issues are not necessarily that important to those in charge, to those making decisions, and that's very concerning.
You think about the cases just a few years ago. It was Jack Phillips. It was about baking a cake and just put whatever we want on our cake. Stay out of our decision of what goes on our wedding day or in the bedroom, so to speak. But now you're talking about actual medical doctors that might be forced to violate their own conscience, their own religious liberty. This is another form of slavery, is it not? That doctors would then be forced to make decisions that violate their conscience, that are actually against medical science, that actually do bring harm to patients. It's a violation of the Hippocratic Oath that they first and foremost, they shall do no harm, commit no harm to the patient. And dysphoria now is magically the preeminent sort of right, that I have a right to my own narcissistic self-delusion. And my delusion rules over medical science or the scientific method, and I can make anyone bow to my will. What do we do to push back on that and protect the rights of medical doctors?
Well, I think it's really important to call out what is going on here, right? There is a very clear religion or orthodoxy of the state or of the Biden administration or of the left that is being forced on doctors and medical professionals in this instance. But in many cases, it's being forced on schools, it's being forced on kids and parents across the country. And we need to be better at calling it out and saying what it is. It's a religion of the left. It's not based in facts, it's not based in science, it's based in feelings and emotions and ideology. And we shouldn't be pretending that there's anything scientific about it whatsoever, except the very clear stories of people like Chloe Cole, who have lived through all of this and had a double mastectomy, went on testosterone, went on puberty blockers, and now has the battle scars to prove it and can say, this is how all these things affected my body. Here are the scientific and biological facts. And so I think we need to lean more into the evidence that we have at hand, because this gender ideology is not based in anything other than ideological narratives.
Mary Margaret, your book, of course, covers that, Chloe Cole and many other stories. Many lessons that have been learned from detransitioners, those who woke up one day and recognized maybe they were cured of their dysphoria, maybe they recognized that their depression was still there. All the signs were still there, even though bodily they had undergone a lot of changes. What are some of the biggest lessons? I think folks who may not be aware of this, certainly you had a front row view of all of this, being able to talk with those who had walked down this road, this journey. It's horrific. What's the biggest lessons that you've learned?
Well, I think one of the biggest lessons is that people in our culture need to be doing their own research and learning the facts for themselves. And I'm specifically thinking of parents who trusted medical professionals who lied to them. In this day and age, you can't necessarily trust medical professionals or many professionals to be pushing you to do the right thing when many, many people are ideologically impacted. So for many of these parents who loved their kids and didn't know how to help them in this situation, they went to doctors, and the doctors said, would you rather have a dead daughter or a living son? And those doctors encouraged them to transition their children by saying, if your kid doesn't transition, they're going to probably commit suicide, which is a lie and is a very manipulative and horrible thing to say. But in these situations, the parents trusted the doctors, and they should have relied on their gut, gone with their gut, done their research, and tried to do what was best for their child. Unfortunately, that's just the world that we live in now.
Mary Margaret, that's absolutely right. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your comments and your expertise.
Well, friends, you might have heard that Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of their box stores or shopping channels the way that they used to. They've been part of this cancel culture, so they want to pass along the savings directly to you by having a $25 extravaganza. I love that word, extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just a one-product company. With the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products, some you may not even know about. To get the word out, I want to invite my listeners to check out their $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows are just $25. MyPillow sandals, also awesome, only $25. Their 6-pack towel sets are $25. And brand new 4-pack dish towels, you guessed it, just $25. For the first time ever, the premium MyPillows with the all-new Giza fabric, just $25. And orders over $75 will receive free shipping too. This amazing offer won't last long. Go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Jenna, or call 800-564-8475 today. That's 800-564-8475, or go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Jenna.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis Tonight. I'm joined by Senior Editor at Large for Newsweek and host of the Josh Hammer Show. Josh, welcome. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Over the weekend, Josh, headlines were made in North Carolina when Duke University invited legendary comedian Jerry Seinfeld as the keynote speaker, and it awarded him a doctorate. I wanted to play a clip real quick from that event this weekend.
Jerry is also serving as our commencement speaker today. Commencement speaker. Aside from the fact that we're perhaps all wondering whether he's wearing a puffy shirt.
Well, for those who are watching, Josh, there were students in protest, some saying free, free Palestine. They stormed off. They were upset. This was the commencement. This was the commencement address that many students and their parents were waiting for. Jerry Seinfeld's, of course, a legendary comedian, king of awkward moments, by the way. Do you think he was prepared to be greeted so rudely over the weekend?
So, as both a Duke alum and a lifelong fan of both Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm, I have a lot of thoughts on this particular saga. So, I want to just note one thing. So, for those who are watching, I think you saw it was only a relatively modest, a fairly small number of these pro-Hamas, pro-jihadi, anarchy students who stood up to actually walk out. And you could hear there that they were actually audibly booed by the overwhelming majority of students who actually stayed seated. So I was very happy to see that. You know, I graduated Duke in 2011. I have to say that when I was there, and I was a member of Alpha Epsilon Pi, the Jewish fraternity, none of this was really there. I mean, this whole uprise of this pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas, pro-jihadi sentiment is a fairly recent thing at Duke, as it is a fairly recent thing in many other American universities. But, you know, Jerry Seinfeld, to his credit, actually went ahead and made some jokes over the course of his commencement speech, kind of calling out these students, calling out Harvard for how they have become essentially a Hamas bastion on the Charles River in Boston, Massachusetts. So I think that Jerry Seinfeld actually handled this whole situation with aplomb. And, you know, these miscreants, these absolutely spoiled brats who got up to protest a Jewish man for apparently no other reason than the fact that he is Jewish and believes in the Jewish state's right to exist. You know, the joke's on them, because these people are absolute scumbag, Jew-hating misanthropes, and God willing, they will not get fulsome employment despite their Duke degrees.
Yeah, I hope that you're right. It's rather alarming that the BDS movement, boycott, divest, and sanction, has so metastasized that it seems like it's virtually on every campus. There's some rare exceptions. Certainly where I'm at Liberty University, students are praying for Israel, holding prayer vigils, having speakers that are affirming why we need to be supportive of Israel, the Israeli people, and certainly when they are fighting their own war, a just war, in response to a merciless act of terror. We need to be clear on this. We need to be unified. Why, though, is it that we're seeing BDS kind of movements everywhere across America, Josh?
You know, there's a lot of variables that go into this. So let's kind of walk through it briefly one by one. So one, I think the overarching 35,000-foot altitude view is you really are seeing, I think, the 50-year march through the institutions, the chickens coming home to roost from this 1960s cultural Marxism, this Frankfurt School, bequeathed school of radicalism. You really do have the metastasis of this view of the world between this false dichotomy between oppressors and oppressed. And, you know, somehow the Jews have become in the minds of these left-wingers, these paradigmatic oppressors, which is news to me because the Jews are the most genocide and oppressed people in the history of humanity. I mean, you know, my Ashkenazi Jewish ancestors had to flee Europe for the Holocaust. My Sephardic wife, her ancestors had to leave all the Arab lands in the 1940s and 50s when they were subject to similar pogroms. My wife's father had to flee Iraq. I could go on and on here. I mean, so but somehow this mentality has become common fiction in the minds of these left-wing students, and it's just disgusting. It's nothing short of disgusting. But you couple that with very unfortunate immigration trends to this country over the past 15, 20 years. And then you then multiply those immigration trends by pernicious affirmative action programs. So they're actually giving benefit to a lot of these people who actually hate Western civilization, who we've brought in through misguided immigration policy. It's just a total toxic stew. Everything that you're saying is completely right when it comes to Israel itself. Israel is fighting a just and righteous war, not of its own choosing. It was slaughtered 1,200 to 1,400 Israelis on October 7th. That is the equivalent of roughly 50,000 Americans, 15 to 16 9/11s all in one day. If that were to happen in Texas, Arizona, somewhere in the Rio Grande Valley from the Mexican cartels, how in the world do we think the United States would respond? Israel has actually acted with incredible restraint in Gaza currently, if anything. Unfortunately, it seems the world does not particularly care for facts. They just want to emote.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. In a time when Israel needs the support of American leadership the most, it seems as though American leadership is turning its back on Israel. Right now, we have over 100 hostages that have been taken captive, have not been released. Among those are not just Israelis, but American citizens. What's going on in terms of the Biden administration, the back and forth behind the scenes? What do you think is happening there?
Well, it's absolutely disgusting stuff. I mean, the latest headlines that we've seen over the past few days are that the Biden administration is essentially blackmailing Israel and saying that we will provide you with new intel to locate Yahya Sinwar, the mastermind of the October 7th pogrom, as well as trying to retrieve the hostages if, but only if, you don't actually go in and do a full-scale operation. Now, last I checked, there were at least 5 U.S. citizens who were still being held hostage by Hamas, which, again, last I checked, remains a U.S. State Department-recognized foreign terrorist organization. Also bear in mind the fact that 25 to 35, somewhere in that range, Americans died on October 7th. I mean, this has been an American crisis as well. It's not just an Israeli crisis here. The Biden administration is trying to win votes in Dearborn, Michigan, apparently by all costs, but it's a political miscalculation too. They are alienating swing state voters who, by and large, still stand with Israel.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. Josh Hammer, senior editor at large at Newsweek and host of the Josh Hammer Show. Thank you so much for coming on and weighing in.
Thank you.
Certainly appreciate your thoughts. Folks, stick around. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com and use promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis Tonight. I'm joined by the founder of Come Let Us Worship. He's also the author of Bold and producer of Super Spreader. Just recently, he's been formulating the United March, Israel March at USC campus and also in New York City. Sean Feucht, welcome. Great to see you.
Hey, good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on, Ryan.
Hey, it's great to have you on. I just want to play this clip from your gathering that took place on March the 8th at the University of Southern California. Play it, guys.
This is an amazing moment right here. We have Jews and Christians standing together in unity. This is a moment when never happened before like this. So many all over the country are joining us.
Share this link out there right now, everybody you know.
They're joining us.
Look at this.
They're standing with us in
Very hopeful picture, Sean. I just love seeing that. You have Americans who are gathered there, some Christians, some Jewish, some who just have a common concern for the public square. They hate what they're seeing in the rise of anti-Semitism all over across this country, and they want to stand in solidarity with the Jewish people and with those in Israel. How, first of all, describe the event to us, what happened on March the 8th, and also what happened in New York City just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, so it was actually it kind of started for us at Columbia in New York City, and this was just a few days after the explosion of this anti-Semitic, really demonic vitriol that was taking form on college campuses. And as you guys know, I mean, Americans have been blasted and bombarded with these encampments. I think they're now over 100 universities and protests and this stuff. And so we just thought, you know what? We need to let America see a different picture. You know, Americans need to see that there's more that are going to stand with Israel and stand against this nonsense than there are those that are the antagonists, you know. And we were getting calls from Jewish students across America that were scared. They were concerned. There was threats against their lives. They weren't allowing them to go to their classroom at these public universities, and they were blocking out Jewish students. I mean, it was like, Ryan, are we going back to the 1930s? Like, it's crazy, you know? And so we decided to take a stand, rally people. We just have a real grace and a gift to mobilize in this season. And so we did. New York City, we had over 5,500 people that showed up. It was the largest pro-Israel march in the history of New York City. This is what I've been told. Then we decided, you know, we got to do the same thing in Southern California, UCLA, USC, these campuses. And so we went to USC last week, and again, it was amazing. The unity, the hope, the Jewish leaders, Christian leaders, city leaders rallying together, saying we're going to stand against this nonsense on our college campuses, and we want the world to see a different picture.
No, that's so great. And certainly by contrast, you're in the belly of the beast when you go to New York State or you go to New York City. And certainly when you go there to University of Southern Cal there in Los Angeles County, you're certainly going to see a lot of people that are standing against you guys. But then there are those who are standing with you, and you're giving them an alternative, raising your voice. In these times, it seems certainly dark right now, Sean. Everywhere we go, we're seeing darkness. You've been, in addition to these, you've been going to state capitals all across the country to lead worship events and prayer. You obviously are shining light on the gospel in these dark and trying times. What gives you hope when you look around this country?
That's a great image right there. What gives me hope is that right there, that there's people in America that are willing to stand up, willing to worship. They're from all different backgrounds, all different denominations. They're standing against hate. They're standing against this vitriol, and they're willing to go through the streets of their city and say, I want to be bold for Jesus. And you know, it is dark. It is insane. It's a replay of 2020 in many ways. But at the same time, just like in 2020, we saw a bold church, a remnant church rising up. And you know what? We're seeing the same thing this year, not only at these marches, but in capitals across America.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There is a replay of 2020. You had a documentary called Super Spreader. This was when it was 2 weeks to slow the spread. As you recall, people had to wear their masks, cancel their faces, stand 6 feet apart, get the jab, all of those things. But it seems as though that there is no shortage of fear and hatred to be passed around. That's the real social contagion of this moment of the left and of the woke movement and the woke agenda. But you are canceling fear with faith, and I want to be specific: faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. You're not just coming in the faith of anything or in the faith of self or some new age optimism, but ultimately faith in Jesus Christ. That's most important. That's what counts in these moments. I just want to talk a little bit though about the capital tours themselves. You're going to each of these places to really pray on the steps. and open up these places for worship. Why is that so important, especially at a time when the Christian faith seems to be canceled out in the public square?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is important. What we see in these capital cities, it's been a crazy tour because we're dealing with 50 dysfunctional governments essentially, and the bureaucracy and the red tape. And, honestly, a lot of these capital cities, they're more accommodating to drag queen story hour than they are to Christians gathering to worship. So it's a fight in a lot of ways for us to get in there. But I'm telling you, something is released over these states when they see the church gathering by the thousands to worship and to gather to pray on behalf of their state, rather than just throwing in the towel and saying, this place is done, we're over. No. We're saying, no, we're going to take responsibility for the state that we live in, for the leaders that are leading our state. We're going to hold them accountable, and they're going to know that the church is rising up in this season. And so when we gather, like coming up in 2 weeks, we'll be in West Virginia, Massachusetts, at Boston, and then in Maine. And these states are about to see thousands of Christians descend from across their state and across their region. We're going to worship. We're going to pray. We're going to declare some things. We're going to take communion together, and we're going to have an altar call. We're going to turn the steps of the state capitol into an altar for Jesus. And it's always powerful to see what God can do in those moments.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree, Sean. Thank you so much for your boldness. Thank you so much for putting Christ our King first. And certainly thank you for standing for Israel. I think at a time when people are very confused and shouldn't be, to stand with our friends. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis Tonight. My final guest is Senior Vice President of Business Relations at Liberty University, former Congressman of Virginia's 7th District, Dave Brat. Welcome. Good to see you, man.
Hey, good to be on, Ryan. Thank you.
Well, the Biden campaign is realizing that American voters are worried about the economy. It's always been the economy, stupid. I just want to play this clip from CNN host Fareed Zakaria. It's going viral, talking about just that. Guys, play the tape.
Robust recovery for more than 2 years now, with unemployment hitting a 54-year low in 2023 and increasing only slightly since then. But Biden is getting little credit for it. The shift here is stark. On the question of who voters trust more to deal with the economy, Trump has a 22-point lead over Biden, according to an NBC poll from January. This marks a 15-point bump for Trump compared to the same poll in 2020. Perhaps this is because inflation is a far more pervasive problem than unemployment, affecting all Americans every day. Perhaps it's because people's views on the economy now are largely derived from their broader attitudes towards the candidates. But whatever the reasons, it's a stunning reversal in the midst of a relentless stream of good economic news.
I don't know about good economic news there, Dave, but certainly, there was a discussion or debate a few years ago about UBI, Universal Basic Income, but no one seemed to ever be worried about inflation. Well, now inflation is upon us. It's rampant. It's a much bigger issue. Certainly, unemployment is down, both by participation levels historically, those that are in the labor market, and then historically over a 50-year period, we just don't have as many Americans who are looking for work overall. That's not a good sign, but I wanted to get your expert opinion. You weigh in on this. How are you reading this data?
Yeah, well, that's right. The data are key. And what you'll never hear on the mainstream media is Larry Summers was Secretary of the Treasury under Clinton and Obama, head of the World Bank, president of Harvard University, great, PhD from MIT, I think. In economics, he had a paper in 22 and then again in 24 that showed inflation. Our recent calculations don't include the financing costs, the interest payments for your house, and the interest payments for your car. Well, people, the middle class roughly buys three things. They buy cars, houses, and food. And
Yeah.
so Summers said inflation wasn't 9 at its peak, it was 18%, 18% at its peak. And then everybody knows that at the grocery store, it's that number. So Fareed is
Yeah.
being a little disingenuous. And then when you throw in inflation's going down, well, the mainstream media doesn't explain to you that if it was 10 and 5 and 5, prices went up by 10. They didn't go down by 5. They went up by another 5. And then they went up by another 5. So that's why Americans are ticked off. They've lost 20% of their purchasing power in the past 4 years. And that's not just out of your wallet. That's out of your savings account, your retirement account. If you take money out of your retirement account, you can only buy 80 cents worth of a dollar, right? Like when you go to the grocery store, or 80 cents worth of a house or a car. So it's not a great economy. I can go into more detail on productivity and growth and all that. It's not what's been reported.
You know, Ludwig von Mises is the one who famously said all taxation is theft, but certainly we don't account for inflation, and that is something that is invisibly stealing not only from the elderly and the retirees, but certainly from the next generation. It's a debt that they owe. We have inflation, and certainly we have the ticker every day in terms of the federal debt going up past 34.5 trillion, going up to 35, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. When does this thing go bust?
Well, I've been wrong for 2 years running because I had no idea the government could be this incompetent, right? So after ruining the monetary system, right, they printed $9 trillion, $8 trillion still left on the Federal Reserve balance sheet. That's what gave you the inflation along with the government spending. So then finally the Federal Reserve got their house in order, and M2's going down a hair. But now we're running $2 trillion deficits a year for the next 10 years. We're running COVID economies where you hand out checks to everybody, just like we did under COVID. The budget used to be $5 trillion now it's 7, and we're keeping it at 7. And so when does it bust? It's gonna bust. Everybody, after you lose 20% of your purchasing power, and then more and more and more, and the rich, by the way, the real story is the distribution of income, right? 10% of the people own 90% of the stocks. So they've been doing fine. They're beating inflation. The middle class, guess what? The bottom 50% owns no stock. They don't even have savings account. And instead of having assets, they have debt. And they're paying high interest rates on that debt. So they're soaked.
You know, I think about Wall Street too. It was Gordon Gekko, you know, the fictional character. He called it the Ninja Generation, right? And it was no income, no assets, no jobs. How does the next generation, Gen Alpha, Gen Z is in the workforce right now? They're the youngest generation in the workforce and are of voting age. Interestingly enough, what do you think it's going to impact their turnout in November elections?
Well, unfortunately, they're not getting too good in news, right? The head of productivity is Robert Gordon. Productivity's been going down for 70 years in a row. And CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, has it going down for the next 30, down to 1%, right? And it's at 1.5% for the next couple decades. So that's the economy they're getting. That means growth rates will be 1 to 1.5%. The difference between 3% and 1.5%, I cannot emphasize enough, right? So the jobs aren't there. You mentioned the jobs. The mainstream media hasn't conveyed that all the jobs in the past year have been part-time jobs. The full-time jobs are actually negative, down. And then they haven't told you that in the last 4 to 5 years, over 4 years, all jobs have gone to foreign-born workers. All jobs for the past 4 years to foreign-born workers. So that's the 10 million that have come in illegal under Biden. And all political views are just my own, but those are the facts.
Dave, thank you so much for weighing in on that. And certainly it's something to keep an eye on. We really appreciate you joining us tonight.